Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. My name is Ross McEwen from the Clan MacEwen. Welcome to our YouTube channel and what I know will be another interesting and insightful discussion about all things clans. I'm thrilled this afternoon here, morning there, to have with me Mr. Rick Gilchrist from Clan MacLachlan, speaking to me from the United States. Good afternoon, Rick. How are you?
I'm just fine, Ross, and you?
Super. Yes, we've got the sunshine here in Scotland, which is a rare occurrence. So I stare in that direction. I'm just fondly looking at the sunshine. So thank you very much for taking the time. These discussions, I think, are really valuable. Clans are such an interesting and heartwarming phenomenon in our culture, and just getting to learn how they existed and how they still exist in the modern time, I think, is always good fun. So your surname is Gilchrist, but you've been very involved in the Clan MacLachlan world for, I think, over 20 years now. So it'd be great to just have an introduction from yourself and your interaction with Clan MacLachlan.
Well, I got a phone call about 20 years ago from a fellow named Gilchrist, who said he was coming to Boise, Idaho, which is where I live, and he was down in California, and he said he was coming up here to the Scottish Games, and he wanted me to come out and learn a little bit about my family and my clan, and he extended this welcome to me. And if his name had been MacLachlan, I probably would not have gone, but since he was a Gilchrist, I thought, well, I think I'll go down and talk to this man. So I did, and as they say, the rest is history. I joined the Clan MacLachlan Society that day, and I have been a member for some 20 years now. I've been serving in a number of offices with the clan up to and including being chairman of the International Association. So I've got a little bit of an insight into what's going on with not only the history of the clan, but kind of what's happening with the clan today. And with that, I don't know, we could start. I can talk a little bit to you about our ancient history and where the MacLachlans came from and how they came to be and who we are.
Well, certainly, I think what makes this discussion particularly special and relevant is that Clan MacEwen and Clan MacLachlan. Now, Scotland is a small country in terms of population, but geographically, it's not as small as people think, and it's a very complicated place geographically. So what makes this discussion interesting is that both of our clans are from more or less the same place in Scotland, which is quite rare to come across. So it would be great to learn a little bit about the history of Clan MacLachlan in that part of Scotland. Because there'll be MacEwens, MacLachlans, and everyone in between watching this. So, and I'm interested to learn as well. So yes, starting with the history would be terrific.
All right. I brought along a couple of props, and let me see if I can hold this up so that you can see it. This is a
oh wow,
kind of a chart showing the genealogy of the clans. This fellow right up here came over from Ireland. He was an Irish prince, and he came over and he married this woman here who was a princess that was living here in Scotland, and she was the heiress to all the lands of Cowal and Kintyre. So wow. When he married her, he basically became the owner of those lands, he and she together. Okay, so he had a couple of sons, and this son, which was the older son, then had 3 sons, and these guys, this one here, his offspring are the current Clan MacEwen. This offspring over here, his sons are the Gilchrists and the MacLachlans. Okay. So with that little bit of a background, you can see that the MacEwens, the MacLachlans, and the Gilchrists are all like cousins. Okay, way back there, we were like first cousins, and so we all settled in around the same part of Loch Fyne, and all the lands from Loch Fyne clear up around to up around Loch Lomond, and that whole area north of Loch Fyne all belong to the MacLachlan. All right. Now, the first chief of the MacLachlans was a guy named Gilchrist. All right. So that's kind of how the Gilchrist tied in right from the very beginning. Gilchrist had 4 sons, and one of those sons lived to own all the lands that are still in and around Loch Fyne. Another one migrated down into the Isle of Kintyre, and he set up down there, and nobody really ever knows what happened to that line of the family. But the other 2 sons were up there on Loch Awe, and they built a castle up there, which is called Fincharn today. Fincharn Castle used to be the old Mac Gilchrist Castle.
Wow.
Okay. That subsequently fell into disuse, and because they didn't have any male offspring, it went over, and some other people now own all that land, and other clans have taken that over. But the one son, the eldest son, is the one that inherited the lands down around Loch Fyne, and those have continued on to this day. So the first chief's name was Gilchrist. His grandson was a guy that we call today Lachlan Moore.
Okay.
Lachlan Moore changed his name from Mac Gilchrist to Lachlan, and we think that it was done politically or for political purposes, because he was trying to amass an army and to fortify himself. So he went down to the old Lachlans that were in Ireland, who had been defeated by the O'Neills, and they were like a broken clan, much as the McEwens are, and he wanted to kind of gather them up and use them as reinforcements. So he changed his name to Lachlan, and then they call him Lachlan Moore, which means great, like a great warrior. And that was because he was building this military establishment. And he's also the one that is actually credited with forming Clan MacLachlan. Okay. So then if I fast forward several hundred years, we get up about to 1490, I think it was, that Swing McEwen was the chief next door, the chief of the McEwen clan, the McEwens of Otter. And through a series of unfortunate circumstances, he lost the lands, lost the chieftainship. He died. The lands were given to the Campbells. And all these poor McEwens are now left without any leadership and nobody to look after them, to take care of them. And so a number of you folks came over to the MacLachlans, who say we're just right next door, like just a matter of a few miles, and said, hey, can you guys protect us? And the MacLachlan chief said, sure, come on in. We'll take care of you. And so at that point, the McEwens became a protectorate of the Clan MacLachlan. So for like 500 years now, we've been saying there are 3 families in the Clan MacLachlan. There's the MacLachlans, the Gilchrists, and the McEwens. And I want to put in a word about what's happening with the McEwens, because as you folks know, you're in the process of reconstituting the clan, and I think it's just absolutely great that that's happening. It's taken 500 years, but well, it's better late than never, huh?
Yes, exactly.
Well, about 10 years ago, when you guys started on this whole process of doing this reconstitution, we held a meeting in Scotland, our international organization, and we had a discussion about, well, what are we going to do with all these McEwens that currently belong to our clan? And it didn't take very long for all of us, up to and including our chief who was at the meeting, to say, well, we've been protecting and honoring and welcoming the McEwens into Clan MacLachlan for 500 years. Why should we stop now? So any McEwens that are currently members of MacLachlan are more than welcome to stay with us. There's absolutely no reason that I can see that you can't belong to two clan organizations if you so choose. So at any rate, we're still counting McEwens as part of Clan MacLachlan, and will do so as long as McEwens are interested in what we have to offer.
Well, that's very kind of you to say. Yes, so the Clan McEwen are, thankfully, now in the process. We do have a recognised commander in Sir John Roderick Hugh McEwen, and he's been recognised by the Court of the Lord Lion since 2014. And yes, and previously to that, just leading on from the story that you've just told there, that there was, and I think there still remains a little bit of, we've got some doors still to knock on, because the idea of McEwen as a re-establishing itself is how we look at it as a separate family is still sort of in its infancy. You know, we've had a very busy 10 years plus, but yes, it's over 500 since this arrangement, since our old arrangement fell to bits somewhat. So it's a long story, and I think those watching here might be familiar with septs, but the idea that clan membership and clan protectorates was such a huge part of the culture, and families and groups of people moved around Scotland, and their names, you know, would sometimes change once they arrived where they arrived, if they were part of a community, if they were part of a new agricultural community, or it's a small society. Carruthers is the one I often cite in the lowlands of Scotland, where, you know, the tenants on their land sometimes took that family name because it was an identity, it was a group, a tribe, a clan, a family, literally. So the idea of families moving around Scotland and becoming protectorates, or septs is I guess the term mostly used nowadays, was not unusual, very common, sometimes followed a bit of a disaster, but not always, and is something not to be treated with any contempt or suspicion. It was a way for families to survive and communities to be able to travel and right. Prosper. And I think, and so I think our ancestors, MacLachlan, and MacLachlan's, a debt of thanks, and it's great to hear that McEwens are still welcome, and likewise, there's always a comfortable seat and a glass of something for any MacLachlans. Oh. And you mentioned about the international organisation, so there's still a lot more Clan MacLachlan history to talk about. One of the advantages, or one of the disadvantages of McEwen is that a lot of our written history doesn't exist, because sort of when things started to get really interesting in Scotland, we were already kind of kaput by then. But in terms of clans surviving today, Clan MacLachlan certainly are one of the oldest clans still operating, you know, with I think it's the 25th chief I think you're on now. And it's just 45th. stunning to see. 45th. So it must be 25th. Okay, never mind. Forgive me, I must have read the wrong website. Well, that's even more impressive. Gosh.
Let me say one thing there. We're talking about McEwens and their position within Clan MacLachlan. Our current chairman of our international organization is a fellow by the name of Tony McEwen. So we've got you right up at the very top of our list.
Yes, and Tony is a friend of the clan, so hello to Tony if he does end up watching this. And I know we're recording this on the 24th of August, a few days before a Cowal gathering this weekend, and I think Tony will be involved in that. But yes, it's kind of a history repeating itself a little bit. But yes, great to see and great to hear, and I'm hoping sure that Tony does a great job in the clan.
He's doing a great job for us, and shout out to Tony. Let me go back and talk a little bit about some of the history of the Clan MacLachlan. We hail, you said we're one of the oldest clans in Scotland, and this is generally recognized as being the way it is, because when the Irish came over from Ireland and started coming into Scotland, this is back in about 400. They came right up through the Cowal Peninsula, right up into what is today present Argyll, which is where the MacLachlans and the McEwens and all of us are located. So those are the early on clans in Scotland. And they came up and they established this kingdom of Dalridia. And I'm not sure that I'm pronouncing that absolutely correct, but they had the kingdom headquarters at a little place called Denad, which is just across Lake Fyne, up in the area of San Martin, up in there. And they had it's a great little fortification they have. There was an old hill fort, and you can go up there today, and there is a footprint in the rock where they used to crown their kings.
Wow.
So this is the king of Scotland at that time. The king of Dalridia was crowned there, and they put his foot right there in that rock and to take the oath of office, so to speak. So that's still there today. So it's quite an interesting little visit, and they have quite a visitor center up there as well. I recommend people go there, and it's a great thing to learn about that whole area. But anyway, then you fast forward a little bit, and we had another guy called Somerled, who many people have heard of, who was a son of a Viking, a Norwegian, a Viking, and a local Pictish woman. And Somerled became a great warrior, and he ended up conquering and dominating most of Western Scotland and the Isles. And the Lord of the Isles, who is the MacDonald, actually are direct descendants of his. And so he had to set up all these headquarters out there on the Isles. Well, one of his daughters married one of these older MacLachlan chiefs. So we kind of tied into MacLachlan into the Somerled thing. So all of that kind of leads to three things have now occurred. That if you look at the, let me show you another graphic here.
Sure.
This is our chief's coat of arms, and this is Somerled. This is his ship out there. That's kind of the thing that you see for the Lord of the Isles. Is that up here is the Dalridic lion. That's Scotland. That's a sign of the royal Scottish connection. This right up here is the red hand of Ireland holding the cross of St. Columba. So we've got this religious connection and an Irish connection here, and it's right down there, hon. And this is the O'Neill Irish salmon. So this shows kind of he's got royalty from Scotland, royalty from the Lord of the Isles, the Scandinavian princes, and royalty from Ireland all show up there. That also shows up again. I'll show you another little graphic. This is the clan crest. All right. And you'll notice in the center of it that there are three castles.
Correct.
One represents the Scottish royalty, one represents the Norwegian royalty, and the third one represents the Irish royalty. And then underneath it, there is a crown, because let me check my date, was 1680. The MacLachlan chief was given a barony, and they established the barony of Strath-Lachlan. So he's a baron, and so that's why we've got a crown there in our crest as well.
I think it must be the barony. I think was the 25th. Maybe I'm getting them mixed up. So a few things to unpick there. So for those watching, a coat of arms or a memorial, ensign's memorial, an memorial achievement for a chief. Heraldry is sort of the garden of the history of Scotland, and often a clan chief's or a notable family's coat of arms can be dissected into telling the story of how that person or how that family came to be. And actually, those arms that you just showed of MacLachlan are a perfect example of literally things cut into quarters and telling a different important origin and story. And the boat imagery is all over heraldry in the West Coast, all over MacDonald's coats of arms. The Lord of the Isles title that you mentioned there is now held by the current Prince of Wales. So these titles have a very long lifespan. And just again, for those watching this that may not be as familiar with this stuff as others, the area we're speaking of in current today, it's called Argyll and Bute, is just above Glasgow on the west coast, sort of bottom left almost. And Loch Fyne is it's just a few hours from Glasgow Airport. Edinburgh Airport's only an hour away from Glasgow. It's all very accessible. So when we suggest to go and visit, it's actually very, very easy to go and visit. And I know MacLachlan and certainly McEwen, we have a lot of visitors from around the world that descend merrily upon the Argyll area. But that showing those coat of arms that you just did, Rick, I think is a perfect example of showing just how far back and a lot of this heritage and a lot of these stories go, and that's evidenced in things like that. So that was tremendous. Thank you.
Well, let me do another little show and tell here, as long as we're doing this.
Good.
I'm explaining kind of a little about the MacLachlans and our heritage. We have a number of tartans.
Mm-hmm.
Ties are perfect for show and tell because they're easy to carry around.
Absolutely.
And we take these to the games to say, what's a tartan? Well, it's a plaid that Scots like to wear. This is one of them. This is our hunting tartan, which has a lot of greens in it, which is kind of typical of clan hunting tartans. This one is our ancient tartan, which is got a lot of more. It's got some blues and some
very nice
subtle oranges in it. Then we have a weathered tartan, which is very similar to the ancient tartan. But it's a little more faded, but it's very similar. And then the one that you see most often associated with MacLachlan is our modern tartan, which is a bright dress red. Then we have one that I know you'll love. This one.
Aha! It looks familiar.
McEwen tartan. Now, MacLachlan, our clan MacLachlan claims this tartan since we claim McEwen's, since you're a protectorate. But Gilchrist and MacLachlan's, people of those names, don't wear this one. Only McEwen's can wear this. Mm-hmm. So when we have a clan get together, you'll see all this whole mix of tartans. But anybody that's wearing one of these, is a McEwen. The other people you don't know. They might be Gilchrist, they might be MacLachlan's, and there's 100 different spellings of those different names. So you never know how a person spells their name. You have to listen to how they pronounce it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think there's 95-ish spellings of McEwen alone, and since 2014, just in case there's any McEwens watching, McEwen has been a clan in its own right since our commander has been legally recognised. And the McEwen tartan that Rick was just holding up there is our ancient tartan, which is my personal favourite. But yes, and there's so many different spellings and pronunciations. MacLachlan is one I hear a lot from those from North America, and MacLachlan. Gilchrist is. I never knew the connection between Gilchrist and MacLachlan, because I know a lot of Gilchrists who are searching for their heritage. So now I've got a good answer for them. But tartan.
Don't come see us.
Well, yeah, I mean that's kind of maybe leads us on to the next point. So you're based in the United States. One of the topics that I talk about all the time is as a native Scot. I was born and brought up in the Highlands, and I live in Edinburgh now. When you see online and on Facebook the clan culture and Scottish culture abroad, especially in North America, United States and Canada, and in Australia and New Zealand, it just flourishes. It makes some of our games here in Scotland look like country picnics. It's really just, you guys do it bigger. It looks like in many cases an awful lot better, and there's a passion in those abroad, in their heritage and in their history that I think sometimes is not in quite as much abundance here. In your experience of going back and forth across the channel across the Atlantic rather, to Scotland and the United States, are there any sort of key differences or remarks or anything that springs to mind about the differences between Scots over here in Scotland or the UK, and when you attend events and people in places in the United States and beyond?
Well, one of the things that we have as a prime objective when we go to our Scottish games here, and we set up what we call a hospitality tent. It'll be a MacLachlan tent, and it'll be in with anywhere from 4 or 5 to maybe 100 other clan tents at these games. Our objective is to find people of our name, right? They're in a recruiting mode.
Yeah,
we're trying to get members. Be frank about it. Secondarily, it's to educate the public about Scotland and all it has to offer, and the heritage of Scots, and what Scots have done in America and around the world to further humankind. So it's kind of a two-pronged approach. Now, we've been to, my wife and I have been to, I think by my last count, it's about 86 Highland games over the years. Okay, so we're traveling all around the Western U.S., and not all of those games have we set up a tent. We've been in attendance, had a meeting there. For some reason, we were at those games. We stumbled into a game in Scotland when we were there on one of our trips. We were up checking out the battleground up at Killiecrankie.
Killiecrankie, yes, yeah,
Killiecrankie, and right next to there is the Atholl Castle, right? And so we went over, let's go over there and check that out as well. Well, it just happened that was the Saturday that they were having the Atholl Highland Games.
Brilliant.
And here comes, he has the only standing army in Europe, and they were there, fully armed. They had a cannon, and they're all marching around with their M1s over their shoulders, and they had a really a big deal.
And it's worth just saying, just so the the Chief of Murray is the Duke of Atholl, so Blair Atholl is the area, and he has the just for those watching, he has the only legal private army in Europe, which was granted to him by an ancestor by Queen Victoria. And so as it stands, yes, in case if things ever kick off, the Duke of Atholl has his own private army or private garrison, maybe is probably a better description, ready to go at a moment's notice. But what a great games to stumble upon, Rick. That must have been fantastic.
Yeah. Well, the thing that we noticed the big difference between that game and the games that we attend here in the States is that there were no clan tents there.
Yeah.
And we said, well, of course not, because all of you folks that live in Scotland know what clan you belong to. Okay, here in America, we are so homogenous and have, or not homogenous, unhomogenized. We've got all these different ethnic groups have come in here over the years. And so we just have this vast mix of people from all different nationalities. And many people, they'll have a name like McEwen, and they have no idea that that's Scottish. And so they'll come out to see, well, what I hear was something bagpipes and they're throwing telephone poles, or what is this craziness? And so they come out to see what it's all about. And then we grab them and we say, what's your name? And they say, I'm a McEwen. And we say, okay, what do you know about your family? What do you know about your clan? And I don't know nothing. I don't even know that I'm Scottish, you know. So then we talk to them and kind of try to explain those connections to them. But that didn't happen at the Atholl games because everybody knows their heritage there. So that's really, I think, the big difference that we found, and that might be part of why you say it's taken off so much here, is because people are looking for their heritage.
Definitely, I think. Yeah, I mean, it's a question I ponder a lot, and but I think also here, you know, when the ancestors of those in your part of the world were either invited to leave or chose to leave Scotland or the UK, I think the story here kept going, and I think many people, certainly of my generation, have no idea that clans still exist and that it's something just relegated to movies or television shows or history. So I think sometimes when you see tourists come to Scotland who have an interest in Scottish history and heritage, that enthusiasm does rub off on us. So I think, I mean, the last time the McEwen appeared at a Scottish games was at the Oban Games, the Argyllshire gathering in 2019, and we were the only clan tent there, despite the fact, as you well know, the Argyllshire gathering, there was a lot of chiefs there, there was a lot of chieftains there. It's quite a big deal, that games, and yeah, we were the only one. So that's an interesting point, actually. Yeah, maybe we just assume that we know, or we reckon we know, or there's not maybe so much mystery or intrigue there, which is a shame, because these clan tents or stalls are such a fascinating phenomenon for us, because it is a recruiting ground. It's an information center. There's coffee, there's whiskey, there's tablet, there's, you know, bites to eat. It's a very communal, collaborative, welcoming, you know, part of Highland Games. And I think in America, you know, in McEwen, I know MacLachlan's the same, because the main games just happened a few days ago. There's clan. In fact, I think our clan tents were next to each other. These clan tents are there to serve as a resource for people wanting to discover or just learn. Maybe they might not have any connection, they just want to learn a bit more about it. And it's just fascinating. So having been to so many, over 80, wow, you must have seen them grow and change and morph over the years.
We have been to some really large games, and we've been to some real small games. We've been to games where there are like maybe 2 or 3 clan tents, and maybe not even a full band, but just a piper or 2 is the music. And some guys are out there throwing stuff around, and but other ones that they are really big competitive things where they're going for world championships, regional championships. And matter of fact, one of our MacLachlan members is a lightweight athlete, Scottish athlete, and he went on to win the world championship. Here is about 4 or 5 years ago, and then he came back the next year to defend his title, and he lost, so he came out to be the number 2 guy in the world. Wow. Now he's a guy that I know personally, because he lives right here in the same town I do, right? And he's a young kid, good-looking guy, and he gets out there and he wears a MacLachlan tartan when he's competing. So he's good publicity for
it. Of course. Well, these things matter. These things matter.
Yes.
And that leads into my next point is clans in the modern age. So there's a society for everything in life. You eventually learn this, but clan societies are the living, breathing sort of vehicle for clans existing nowadays. And most clans have them. Most clans have, one for America, one for Australia, and they're kind of split up. But can you tell us a little bit about the society setup? So you said that you'd held some positions in the clan early at the start of the conversation, but some people might not know what that actually means. So what is a clan society, and what function does it?
Okay. Well, the clan itself is people, and it is the center of our clan anyway. And I'm assuming other clans have this same feeling about them. The center of the clan is the homeland, the lands that are owned in Scotland. So all these MacLachlans around the world, whether they're in New Zealand or Canada or here in the United States, they kind of look to the castle in Scotland. Okay. Now, another something for you to look at.
Great.
So you don't have a glare on it. This is our old castle. Now, this is an old picture. And see how it's got all the ivy and stuff covered all around it? Well, and this thing was lived in up until the Jacobite revolt in 1745. Okay.
Wow.
So after the 45, the family was kicked out of there. The army took it over. The government army took it over, and it kind of fell into disuse. There's some stories that say a gunboat came up and blew up part of the castle. So anyway, it's been just sitting there, going to waste and having ivy grow all over it since 1745. So shortly thereafter, about 1800, we got some help from our neighbors across the loch, the Campbells, and we built this castle. Okay, so we have two castles now there on Loch Fyne, and this is where our chief lives. He actually lives in the castle. So that's homeland that we all look towards. Okay, so as a clan society, the idea is to learn more about the clan, to develop. As I say, we recruit, we educate. The particular branch that I belong to has a scholarship program that we have set up, and we give money to aspiring individuals that are participating in Scottish activities, be it dance, bagpipes, athletics, language. If you're doing anything that is related to Scottish culture, we have scholarships that we're giving out. We also, to get back to the old castle there that has fallen into disuse, we started several years ago to try to stabilize that castle. Okay? We set up a trust that can actually take in money. It's a charitable trust, so you can donate to it, and then we can use that money that we get in donations and fundraisers and whatever sources we can come up with. We can use that as a match to go against some of the organizations there in Scotland to build the amount of money that we've got in reserve that we can go in and do the rehab on the old castle. And we've been through 3 phases of it so far. They've taken down all that ivy. There was a great big huge crack where one corner of that castle was coming off, and they put some gigantic big rivets in there to hold it all together. And we're now looking at our phase 4, which is to finish up the other 2 walls that need some support and ivy removal. And then we're going to be going in and putting in some not scaffolding, but ladders, stairwells, steel stairwells, so that you'll be able to walk all the way up and get clear up onto the ramparts and be able to see out over the loch like they did in ancient
Wow,
times,
that's amazing.
and put in some more signage. So we're looking at raising right now about 100, excuse me, not 100, a million, and misplaced my decimal point, about £1,000,000.
Wow.
Not dollars, but £1,000,000 is what we're looking at over the next several years in order to accomplish this next phase and to get that thing so that it's completely not renovated but stabilized.
That's amazing. Yeah, I mean, again,
those are the kinds of things that the clan societies are doing.
exactly, and I think they're equally diverse. I mean, they all, or most of them, appear at Highland Games. Most of them have Ceilidhs and that, but societies also have, most of them at least, purposes that are linked probably in some way to their history. But we're developing a scholarship idea. Also, I know clans that have specific Piper scholarships and environmental work. They're not just existing for pageantry alone. Some of them are actually putting continuing the work. And in the case of MacLachlan, that's perfect. In fact, if you're looking at this old building, that again, the Jacobites, I know MacLachlan was heavily involved. They were very loyal Jacobite supporters. And just always disclaimer, whenever I talk about Jacobites, I always include, because many people don't realize, it wasn't Scotland versus England. Unfortunately, for a great part of it, it was Scots versus other Scots. It's a much more complex situation than just Scotland v England. But to have that resource to build it back up, I think is just extraordinary. And there are castles everywhere in Scotland. I'm about 100 meters away from Restalrig Castle, one of the old seats of Clan Logan, and they are everywhere. But they're in just many of them just tremendous states of disrepair. It's just eye-watering. And so the work that the I think it's the Old Castle Lachlan Trust is doing, I think is just remarkable. So any MacLachlan members or any non-MacLachlan members, please look that up on online, because I think it's a good example. And Clan St Clair did something similar with one of their buildings in Caithness in the north of Scotland to try and save these buildings. Yes, it's good to look at. No, they'll probably never be rebuilt into a dwelling that you could live in. But what you've just described is a castle that people can hopefully one day soon, if not already, go inside, experience, touch, climb up, see the view that their ancestors looked at so many hundreds of years ago. So your chief and you and your colleagues, I think, should be commended, because there's one thing talking about having a charitable entity. It's quite a different thing to actually do it and make a success of it. And £1 million at the moment is probably 1.3-ish million US dollars. So it's a large amount of money to look at raising.
But we will do it.
You will do it. Good, excellent. I'm glad to hear it.
We've already done 3/4 of it, so we know it can be done. And the charitable organizations that we've been working with know that we're doing it and it can be done. So they're just waiting for us to come up with our match so that they can throw some more money at it, and we can get it done.
Well, I just looked it up. So yes, it's 1.3 million US dollars. So if you're watching this and have an interest in Scottish history or MacLachlan or just heritage like that, please look it up, donate what you can. Clearly a worthy cause. So you articulated that really well. Clan societies are far more interesting than perhaps some of them look like on the surface. Getting involved in your clan society. So MacLachlan is a global clan. The fact that you and I are speaking across the world right now is evidence of that. So how is the clan societies set up? Does MacLachlan have a separate society for different parts of the world, or is it one giant group?
We have a number of branches. We've got a branch in Scotland, Ireland. It's a Great Britain branch, Scotland, Ireland. There is another branch in Canada. We have 2 branches in the United States, one on the East Coast, one on the Western. That's the one that I'm associated with. Then there are 3 branches down under. There's one in New Zealand and 2 in Australia. One is the Australian branch and one's the Victorian branch. So there are 7 branches altogether, and each one has its own administrative organization. They're all independent of one another. So what that means is that each one of them collects dues on an annual basis, and each one of them has its own newsletter about what's going on within its branch. And then we also have a international magazine that we put out. Another graphic for you.
Oh, great! Wow.
The last issue. It's called the Clan MacLachlan, and this goes out to everybody in the world. Gets a copy of this. So, and then each branch will have its own newsletter. So we've got this system set up whereby we can kind of keep in touch with the membership and talk to them and tell them about things that are going on in the world or just within their local branches. And then in those areas where there are Scottish games going on, the branches are the ones that are responsible for going out and actually setting up the tents and doing the recruiting and all the things that go on at the Scottish games, at the Highland games. So that's kind of what the branches do. Yeah. Now the presidents of each of the branches is a representative then to the society, the International Clan MacLachlan Society, which meets annually in Strachur. Okay, they're at the castle, right near the castle there in Strachur, and so they have that meeting on an annual basis. And what they do is they kind of set policy. They come up with ideas, just fundraising ideas that might come up. They hold a gathering at the castle every so often, and it's varied over the years. And of course, COVID kind of just schedule all out of whack. But they were doing it like every 5 years. We would have this huge gathering where Scots, MacLachlans, all three families of the MacLachlan would come to Strachur for a weekend, and they'd have ceilidhs and demonstrations and feasting and whiskey tastings and just a big fun weekend, and throw a couple meetings in just to make it all legit. And then everybody would either go off around the countryside and tour, or go to Ireland or France or wherever they go, and then go on home. And so it gave everybody just a real good chance to get together and meet some of our family members from other parts of the world.
Definitely. I mean, Scotland's population has never hit 6 million in its history, and yet there's more people with Scottish heritage all around the world than there ever has been here. So I think bringing that global family kind of, and then and the history that happened after they left, again, invited to leave or otherwise, I think it's so vital and important. So it's super to see. And yet the clan gatherings are, I mean, we've spoke recently to the chief of Clan Hunter, and they thankfully also still own their historic seat. So they have these big almighty gatherings, which are just a whole load of fun. But you mentioned there as well to have meetings alongside. So yes, dancing and whiskey and songs and singing is definitely the more fun of the two activities. But it is important that clans exist and continue to steward their responsibilities for guarding their heritage. And I keep saying to my colleagues all the time that we are writing McEwen, well, for us McEwen, but we're all writing our family's history still every day and every year and every meeting that we have. The story's still continuing. These are living, breathing entities, and people should hopefully not be nervous or hesitant to join and get involved in them. It's not just heritage and history. That is a huge part of it, but we're also sculpting our family's future. And I think part of what you described this evening of MacLachlan definitely shows that it's not just a history party, it's a here and now and into the future, because they've lasted this many 100 years. They need to last just as many, if not more, into the future.
Amen. Well said.
Super. Well, I think that's a terrific chat. Hopefully the first of a few, Rick, if you're agreeable. For those watching who may or may not be a McEwen or MacLachlan or one of the variants that Rick described, please look up your family name or whether you think you may have a Scottish or Irish. The Irish clans don't get enough airtime a lot of the time. please get involved in your clan if you can. Get in touch with officers, get in touch with the website. If your clan does not have a chief, which McEwen is currently in that position, it does not mean that there isn't a clan society or a clan entity out there somewhere. So Rick, if you have any or the web links or that people could look up for Clan MacLachlan, if you don't have them to hand, I can put them in the description afterwards. About how people can keep up to date with Clan MacLachlan.
We do. Would you like me to give you that right now?
If you have them, and then I'll put them in the description as well.
The one that will get you to my branch, which just happens to be a tax exempt charitable organization, so they can donate. It's www.MacLachlanWusa.com.
Great. MacLachlanWusa.com for a
Right.
tax exempt donation opportunity.
Right, exactly.
Terrific. Well, thank you. 1,000 thanks, Rick, because we've done this with very short notice. So I'm very, very grateful to you. I hope those watching this have found it interesting. If you're ever in Scotland, please look up your clan. I'm sure there'll be a warm welcome there for you. So we'll stop the recording just now. But thank you very much indeed, Rick Gilchrist from Clan MacLachlan, for taking the time and the trouble. And Clan McEwen sends its greetings and compliments as always.
Thank you, Ross.